Hi, everyone. Welcome to another great session from Caribbean Connect as we keep bringing information to you, the general listeners, wherever you are in the world. If it is morning, noon, lunchtime, wherever you are, it's all about sharing knowledge and building community. A very interesting conversation yet again today. My name is Shavani Sinarain, and joining me is no stranger to our platform, Tony Ragunanan. Now, I know Tony for a number of years in many different areas, many different facilities, so I got to know Tony very well. But who is Tony? Tony is a learning and development practitioner, I would say. That is who he is, a L&D practitioner. He has been in this field. Now, when you look at Tony, you wouldn't think that he has over 20 years of experience in the field, right? Because, well, you're not looking like he has so many years of experience. But when you hear him speak, you will know definitely got years of experience. He has a diverse amount of training and development in using different learning models, different theories, just ensuring that you bring the information to the trainee, to the person that we are coaching, to the person that we are mentoring. He does a lot of work in strat, performance management, implementation of systems. So Tony and I, we really want to have this conversation. It's a very pertinent conversation. Tony is from V Formation, that's his training company, number of years, providing this expert knowledge. So once you want to understand performance management, and once I want to understand performance management and his favorite word, one of his favorite words, behaviors, I go to Tony to try to understand that. Now, we are 2024 approaching, and all of us are trying to look at setting goals. You might write it down in a book. You might start a journal. But we thought that this might be a conversation on coaching that could help us to set relevant goals and stick to it, right, Tony? So thank you so much, Tony, for joining us here
Yes,
today.
you're welcome. Okay, so today, good afternoon, everybody. Today I want to talk about the GROW model. And for those of you, this is a very popular model for coaching generally. And just to outline, and the GROW model, it is an acronym, and the G stands for the goal, R is for reality, O is for options, and W is the way forward. Now, even though we use this generally as a coaching model, we could actually use it for ourselves because with coaching, it's all about asking questions, right? So, and this is what makes it different from mentoring or giving feedback. Coaching is specifically about asking questions to get people to make decisions for themselves, find solutions for themselves, but we are here as coaches as a guide. So just to share, let me share my screen, Shivani, and if you have any questions in the meantime, you could ask.
Great, you're allowed to share, yeah? You have sharing rights,
Yeah.
Great. Yes, and the GROW model for goal setting, GROW. And, I have found in project management, right? In project management and in leadership, we have to look at different models. How do you set it for yourself? Just today, I came out of a conversation with someone and we were discussing, how could you lead somebody if you can't lead yourself, right? You need to lead yourself. And this coaching model, this GROW model, I found it to have a lot of relevance. So I look forward to hearing your points. And of course, I'll chime in and ask questions.
Okay, so why I have this picture on here, this is sometimes called the tree of life. When we look at our own lives, we could see, or the lives of other people, maybe our direct reports. Everybody is somewhere within their development. Some people at the bottom, they climb in, they have some help. Some people at the middle, some people at the top just hanging on. So the GROW model is really, again, an acronym. So the goal is, what do you want? The reality, what is happening? The options, you could find a series of options. What could you do? And then what will you do? What is the way forward? Now, one of the things that I came across, now, when we use it on a personal level, for example, if we had to ask questions to ourselves, a lot of times people don't have the clarity in terms of the process it takes in getting there. Recently, I was in a training program, and one person in the program said they wanted to lose weight. For example, another one said that they wanted to learn to ride a bike, surprisingly, because her children were starting to ride and she wanted to ride with them. So the goal is important, and knowing what you want to achieve is important, but what is the process that you are using to get to those goals? What are some of the steps that you have in place? Did you look for a store, for example, for the person who wanted to learn to ride a bike? Do you have a store? Did you go into a store and sit on the bike? Did you ride around on it? What are you using to learn to ride a bike? Do you have a coach that could teach you to ride a bike? The other one who wanted to lose weight, what plan did they have in place? Well, it turns out they didn't have anything in place, really. They just wanted to lose the weight. So it's really about asking yourself, what is the goal and what is the reality right now? Where are you right now? So Shivani, you have any questions on that so far?
Yeah, I find this is so interesting. You know, a lot of times people would say, Tony, I want this, right? But you really didn't put it down in a proper goal, you know, you really can't measure it. So I might just say, well, I want to win $1 million, right? I want $1 million to just come. That's a goal. That's how am I going to make that happen? 2024 is on us. What do you really want? Do you really, and something I found too, Tony, a lot of people say, you know, I want this, but they really don't know what they want. They really don't know what they want. They may be looking at somebody else and they find they look nice, or they have the nice bag and a nice car, and they say, I want it. But and another point came up recently. A person did get it, right? He did get what he wanted. He got the job. It was a bigger job. And what do you think happened after? He really didn't want the job. He really did not want that job. It wasn't what he wanted, but he thought he wanted it.
Yeah, that happens to a lot of us in terms of going after things and not having a plan in place. But what you really want to get is clarity. And this process helps us to get clarity. Now,
I'm seeing, sorry, Tony, I'm seeing Ruth is saying, my goal is, and Ruth is one of our members for very, very long on our platform. My goal is to register my business where I'm right now, is at the stage of preparing a business plan. So she has a goal, right? What you would say.
Right. But with Ruth preparing a business plan, she already looked at her reality, understanding what is it that she is missing at this point. And Ruth, feel free to jump in at any time if you have a question. You probably have a good idea of what your reality is, which is why you probably jumped in and said, well, I need to create a business plan, which is one of the options you came up with. But if you had to think, what else do you need to have in place? What else do you need to put in place in terms of options? What else could you do? Maybe you could get some more answers there. Now, with the grow model, I think one of the if a message comes through, Shivani, just let me know.
Funding. Ruth is saying funding or finance. That's what she needs.
Right. And now you have to think, well, what do you need to get the finance? Where do you need to go? What banks or credit unions you need to engage, if anything?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I wanted to add to this model, especially in terms of the reality and options, and I'll come back to the model. Now, I'm sure we all heard about what a SWOT matrix is. A SWOT matrix is just a planning tool that many people use in their companies, whether it's marketing or sales or finance, whatever it is, or the company as a whole. They do a SWOT matrix. But what that does, it really gives you information. For example, if you wanted to really analyze your reality, a SWOT matrix is a good place to start. And keep in mind, this could be done on an individual level, and it could be done on a departmental level or on an organizational level. It doesn't matter how you want to analyze or where you want to analyze it. it's really important that you get all the information. Because what that does, it gives us the opportunity now to use something called a TOWS matrix. And I'll show that here. So, one second, Siobhan.
So the GROW model, as you're pulling up this,
Right.
GROW, what is your goal? And then you have to make it a reality.
Yes.
How do you really make something a reality?
Right. So the tool I want to share now is really something called. But before I get to that, with coaching, what needs to be in place is really awareness, responsibility, and choice. For example, if I ask you to go and get a ladder in the room next door, if I said, Shivani, could you go in the room next door and get a ladder for me? And you go into the room next door and you don't see a ladder, what is the next thing you think you would do? You would probably come back to me and say, well, Tony, there's no ladder in the room next door.
Yeah.
What I just did is I told you exactly what to do. But with coaching, we don't tell people what to do. We ask them what could be done. So if I said instead, I need a ladder, could you get it for me? You may go to the room next door and look for one, and you may search other places to look for one. So what I've given you now is awareness, responsibility to get the ladder, and the choice to search in different places to get it. So this is how it applies to the GROW model. You have awareness of the goal and reality, and responsibility for coming up with options, and then the choice when you come up with options to go after those options. So while I was talking about the SWOT just now, the SWOT is really related to the reality and the option section, because the SWOT gives you a good idea of what the reality is in your life or in your situation, whether you're using it personally or on a organizational level. So everybody knows what the SWOT is. It's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Now, in applying this to the TOWS matrix or the TOWS matrix, we take those strengths and we put them here. We list them on top here. Are you seeing my cursor moving?
Yep.
Are you seeing that? Just give me a thumbs up if you could. And what you have, you list your weaknesses. Remember, you came up with all of these weaknesses. You came up with all of these strengths. Now, this is a very, very powerful plan action tool. Now, the SWOT, having the SWOT matrix is a good planning tool, but this is an action tool. You list your opportunities here and you list the threats here. Remember, the threats and opportunities are external things. The strengths and weaknesses are internal, something about you or your company or your department. So when you look at the strategies now, how do you use these strengths and these opportunities to come up with SO strategies? These are strategies that would leverage strengths with opportunities. For example, the WO strategies are strategies that will leverage opportunities to minimize weaknesses. The ST strategies would be the strategies that leverage your strengths to minimize threats. And then the WT strategies will be the strategies that minimize weaknesses and avoid stress. Now remember, unlike the SWOT analysis, this gives you actions. This gives you activities to do that you could come up with different strategies to minimize threats, make use of the opportunities, etc. So let me show you an example of what this looks like for Starbucks. I imagine this is not the official one. This is sort of an example that they put up. So for example, strengths would be up here in terms of profitability, brand recognition, and global presence. And weaknesses would be uneven worldwide distribution, product pricing, and sustainability. Over in opportunities, they have new markets, new products and services, and purchasing companies. And in threats, they have new entrants, US market saturation, and changes in customer favor. So what they did is they took S1, which is profitability, and O1, and they created an action, reinvest profits in new markets. They put an action here for use its brand to sell new products. For example, they took S2, which is brand recognition, and they put it together with new products and services. And they created this action here. And it's the same thing for each strategy that you are seeing. Each quadrant you are seeing has actions. Now, years ago, maybe about a decade ago, I did this activity on myself, which is something, Ruth, that you could probably consider doing as well, is using this on yourself to come up with strategies that would take advantage. Now, when I did it, a lot of new things came into my head. I mean, lots of new things because, and the reason why they call it TOES matrix and not SWOT matrix is because you have to take the opportunities and threats first. You have to take them first, write them down first, because that will determine what you do. You cannot take a strength and use it if there is no opportunity to use it. You know, if that makes sense to you. Shivani, Ruth, does that make sense?
So global presence, your strength is your global presence, but the opportunity, so that's your strength within your internal, right? And then you're saying your opportunities would be like new markets because of your global presence. So you know you could get into that.
Yes, exactly. So now keep in mind, this is a simplified one. For example, if I wanted to use S3 and combine it with O1, then I could put S3 O1 and put it here and put the activity that I'm going to do to utilize that strength to take advantage of this opportunity. Okay? So that is how it works generally. I've been using this since 2008 with different companies, and a lot of things come out of it. I mean, they come up with a lot of different activities. From there, when this process is finished, you have a whole bunch of activities. Now you have to look at the activities again, whether you are looking at it from a personal perspective or organizational perspective. You will have a whole bunch of activities, a list of them. Now you have to look at those activities and sort of determine the criterion and determine the criteria that you would want to use to put this one first, which is the most important one, which is the least important one, and put them in order of priority to move forward. Okay? All right, so let's come back to this GROW model now. Now remember, when we are coaching people, we have to make sure that they are aware of that goal, or yourself, be aware of what the goal is that you want. What is the responsibility that you have to take in terms of the reality and options, and then the way forward? What are the choices that you are going to make? And then you have to look at yourself and say, well, what is it that I have to do? And put a plan into place and set deadlines, because goals without deadlines are a waste of time. You know, it's like seeing somebody after a long time and he said, we should have a coffee sometime. Well, that doesn't happen because you didn't set a deadline. If you said, you would have a better chance of saying, well, let's meet for a coffee Tuesday at 10 o'clock. Then it's more likely to happen because there's a deadline attached to it. Okay? Any questions again, Shivani or Ruth?
Do you recommend that startup brands to do TOES matrix or just the SWOT analysis? That's a question, Kevin.
Yeah, the SWOT matrix, remember the SWOT matrix is only going to give you information. But nobody is going to take information and not do anything with it. You have to put it into a TOES matrix and come up with certain actions so that you could move forward with whatever actions you think is most important at the time.
So I had a question to Tony that came up on my not through another channel, right? What they were saying, what is the difference with coaching and mentoring and training? So training, coaching, and mentoring. That was just a by the way question.
Yeah, mentoring is more like mentoring is more like showing someone how to do something. You're actually teaching them. So it's very it's unlike coaching in the sense that people are not finding their own solutions like coaching would. If I'm showing somebody how to use a piece of machinery or something, it sort of combines a little bit with training, but it's not the same thing. Training comes out of coaching. For example, if for example somebody had to, and coming out of coaching, well, I need to develop more of this. Well, then they would consider training for that.
Yeah. Good.
Okay. All right. Okay, yeah. So from here, I just wanted to find out if there were any other questions that you had, Ruth or Shivani.
No, I think we're okay for now. Yeah.
Okay, Ruth.
Not seeing anything. So yeah.
All right, good. Okay, so what we have to do really with coaching is just make sure that there's clarity when you finish this process. Clarity is really helpful for you to move forward in any particular direction. So what the SWOT matrix does, and the TOES matrix, sorry, SWOT analysis and TOES matrix, it comes up with a series of actions where you set deadlines to get whatever you want done. Now, keep in mind that coaching is all about questioning. It's not about telling people what to do. A lot of leaders seem to think that sometimes I would go into a meeting and ask people about coaching, and they say, yes, we coach everybody, but how do you do it? How do you actually coach people to get things done? Well, I tell them to do this and tell them to do that, but that is not what coaching is. If you are in the habit as a leader of telling people what to do and telling people every time they come to you with a problem that you have to solve their problem for them, then it becomes very difficult for them to develop in the future. It becomes very, very difficult for them to come up with a level of initiative if you are answering all the questions, because maybe you might never go on vacation if you answer all the questions, right? So you need to really force people into answering the questions. Does that make sense? Shivani, any questions?
So with coaching, what you're saying, yeah, not forcing them.
No. Yeah, sorry, Shivani.
So with coaching, what do you want? I am not telling you what you want. You have to tell me what you want.
Right. Coaching is not something that people may need guidance, but in order for them to have guidance, they have to be willing to be coached. They have to be willing to sort of have a level of self-awareness to say, well, I need to develop something about myself. Where coaching becomes difficult is when people feel they have no problems. Where people feel they have no problems with themselves, like nothing is wrong with them, they have nothing to develop, then it becomes difficult to coach. The other thing that makes it difficult to coach is that when the relationship is not good between the leader and their direct report, it becomes very difficult to coach somebody, because remember, this is a process that requires a level of respect in each person. So it's very, very difficult to coach somebody who doesn't have any respect for you as a leader. So it's really important that relationship is there. Now, I have met some people who are uncoachable. And when you are uncoachable, it means that you are not willing to accept any sort of responsibility for change. Because if you have been given feedback. Now, I was having this conversation today about the actual performance appraisals that sort of lead to coaching eventually. For example, if on a performance appraisal, something is said to the direct report that is a surprise, nothing is supposed to be a surprise on a performance appraisal. Nothing. If something is a surprise, it means that any sort of feedback given before should have been given before was not given. So this way you don't have any sort of, the person may not have any reason to listen. No, because you haven't been having a conversation with them. Now, it's important that all of these conversations happen. We have to have expectations conversation at the beginning of the financial year. That is important. That is what creates clarity for everyone involved. But without clarity, then people don't know what they have to do. With clarity, at least people know what they have to do. And if there is some challenge in between, then you get into the feedback and coaching eventually.
Okay.
Crystal came in late. Crystal, Parrot, Jack. Had any questions, Crystal?
Feel free to type on the chat if you want. Okay. All right. Yes. So goal. You must have the goal. You must be aware of the goal, Tony. I like that idea.
Well, it's not just the goal. Is what clarity are you attaching to the goal? What is the deadline for that goal? Because sometimes people have a goal, but they don't put a deadline. We have to have clarity into these processes. And one of the important things about this process is that we always have to remember what is the environment that somebody is in. Let's suppose it's you coaching yourself about going after something. What is the environment like in order for you to get that goal? For example, it's sort of like you walking in the house and let's suppose you wanted to cook something and the dishes pile up in the sink. Do you actually feel like cooking? You don't really feel like cooking because now the environment is affecting your motivation to go cook. If that makes sense to anybody, that's assuming.
That's that, yes, that people cook on this. You're assuming the example. You have cooks here. Yeah.
Right. So that making use of the options then, like you want to take action on this, you have to make sure that the environment is there. Why is environment so important? In 1934 it was, Kurt Lewin came up with the formula that behavior is a function of a person in their environment. Now keep in mind how old this formula is. This is true when we are in the womb. That environment in the womb dictates to some extent what we may behave like. Does it have any impact, you think, on behavior? Yes, it does. When you are born into an environment with parents or primary caregivers, whoever they may be. Those primary caregivers create an environment that causes you to behave in certain ways. The same thing with going into schools. I mean, you have a teacher in the classroom that dictates what the environment is going to be like, and it's the same thing in companies. What kind of environment are the leaders creating? Is there psychological safety within the team? Are people allowed to say something? Are people allowed to disagree or make a comment or anything like that within the team? Is that important? Yes, it is important. It is important that people are comfortable saying something, whether they agree or disagree, because I have been to several companies where people are afraid to talk. They have a meeting and everybody is silent. And when it comes to, in that sort of environment, it becomes very difficult for people to open up, generally. So in having this clarity, in getting clarity within an organization. Now keep in mind that if we are in a meeting and we are talking, there's a difference between commitment and consensus, right? So you could get commitment from everybody, even if there is no consensus. And let me explain that in a bit more detail. Consensus is making sure that everybody agrees with this is the plan of action. But let's suppose one person didn't agree. If one person didn't agree, then listen to what they have to say. If we listen to what they have to say and then we respond, yes, that might be a good idea, but the reason we can't go with it this time is because of X, Y, Z. And with that, then you have a better chance of them having the commitment to go after plan A, which is the one that you had planned to go through with the team, go ahead with the team, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's not necessarily so when you have that sort of environment within the organization where everybody could speak freely and feels comfortable speaking, then giving feedback becomes a little easier. Coaching people becomes a little easier because the level of trust is higher. But with some companies where people are very closed off, they are not going to be willing to have any coaching done. Right? So yes. It's important. So it's important that we have that openness within the environment, so that this grow model becomes possible, so that you could use it the way it's supposed to be used. Because with this model, there are a lot of questions. I mean, we shortened it today, but when you have a goal, when you have to identify a goal, there are a lot of questions that go with it. What is the deadline for the goal? Why do you want it? With reality, there are a lot of questions that need to go with that. Well, what is happening now? What are you doing? What are you not doing? What are the opportunities you want to utilize? And then with the options, what could you do first? What is something else that you could do? Is there anything that would prevent you from doing this? These are the questions that we need to ask in order to get the answers we need to get. And then when you come up with that clarity so far, the way forward should be very clear in terms of what you have to do next.
So this is something in project management that is very, very important, Tony, as you correctly said. First thing is, what is the goal? What is the objective? What do you want to achieve? And then I could have all the goal, all the objective, but it must be by a timeline. Whether I'm using, and I mean in PM, we'll call it the waterfall or the agile way. Well, whatever it is, I must have some time to do it. Otherwise, this thing can't get done. It just can't get done. So you may not be able to timeline. So how I love to look at this for me in 2024 and
Right.
using the coaching model, I would say I have a 3 to 5 year plan of things that I want to achieve, right? But of course, I'll become more granular and say for the first 6 months, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I may action it out. So I'm
Right.
creating the goal. I know the goal. It's a long goal. It's 3 to 5 years. I don't know if it may pivot and it may change, no problem. But I have something in mind. But just having it in mind, nothing is going to work unless now I come and I place something to do for the first 6 months. So I'm timelining, I'm time boxing, right? Correct?
Right. Right, good. So I know that well, two people came on late, so they didn't actually see the tools matrix. So I'll just go back to that briefly. Oh, just now. Right. So I think Brian and Crystal, you came in a bit late. So this is just something that I attached to the GROW model. With GROW, the acronyms are GROW, goal, reality, options, will. So within the reality and options, you could use a SWOT analysis, which I'm sure everybody's familiar with. But the one that I was explaining earlier before you came on was using a TOES matrix, which is this. And the TOES matrix is really listing all of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And within here, using actions that combine the strengths and opportunities, using actions that combine weaknesses and opportunities, using actions that combines, one second, weaknesses and threats examples. So it's all actions within here. Okay, so that was just a brief explanation. I know Ruth had to live through it again, but I hope you didn't mind.
No, good point again.
Okay, all right. So that's pretty much it with the GROW model. Any questions again, Ruth or Crystal? And feel free to unmute if you want rather speak than type.
So as persons may be asking questions and coming into the convo, the GROW model, as you correctly said, Tony, it really gives you, and we talk about it a lot in leadership, right? In project management all the time.
Right.
The whole point of projects is to build teams, and is the agile way, as you know, to do work, to coach people, to lead them, to mentor them. And you're not telling people what to do. So you use it right for yourself also. You're not telling them what to do. So you have to have a conversation, as you would always say, have a conversation with the person to determine what they want. They have to determine what they want. People have to determine what they want. And important is the reality, what is happening. Because people could say, and I mean, we could have the conversation going into many different ways, whether it's in projects, whether it's in the organization, and whether it's in for your personal development, which is work, which is 2024 hitting us. So once you know what is the goal and you determine what is the goal, what is happening, what is the reality, how could you actually get it done? The environment, is the environment there? What is the reality? You may not have the environment for that. How do you create the reality too? That's a next conversation,
Well,
what could you do?
Yeah, I think the environment is a big thing, and because the environment is really about your culture, and what is culture is how people are interacting. And sometimes when you have a toxic culture, for lack of a better term, and people are afraid to talk, then it becomes very difficult to have the right conversations, and that is a process. In order to change that is a process, because one of the things I find that people sometimes don't do is they don't define the behaviors that they want to see when it comes to their performance appraisals. They have competencies, and some people have lists of competencies where you really only need about 5 core competencies. But what do those competencies actually look like in action? We have to sort of define this so that speak to employees about what we expect. And that is something that I find to be missing, and not everywhere. In some companies, I think some of the foreign-based companies have very, very detailed performance appraisal systems and performance management systems. But what makes it work are the conversations that we have to have, and coaching is one of the big ones.
So Ruth is asking the name of your company, coaching business is V Formation, V Formation. I'll
Yeah,
type
V
V.
Formation in and development, but it's probably better to find me on LinkedIn. Everything will be there and it will lead you to the website. So the website is v.formation.net, v-formation.net, sorry.
Yeah, so you could look him up on LinkedIn, definitely, and you'll find Tony right there and could have conversations and DM him. Yeah. Of course,
Yeah.
you just reach out to us and you'll get his contact number as well. So the growth model, you must have your goal. You must know what is your reality. What is your reality? And so we're going into 2024, and I just came out of a conversation, and someone was telling me they want to get into business, right? But so they have a goal. They want to start up a business. Start up a business. It isn't too clear, but they want to start up one, right? So I told them the same thing you said, you need to have a deadline. And as we come now to talk about the reality is the environment. What do you think about this concept then? He's living, and his support system, his wife and stuff, they're not in supporting of a business. They don't believe in it, right? They prefer the 8 to 4 work and stuff. So don't you think that that is the reality? That's the reality that the person will be living with.
Yeah, it's sometimes making changes are very, very difficult for people. And I realize this with coaching generally, or anything for that matter, and change. And for example, one of the things that came up this morning, actually, in a meeting with a company is there's no adaptability. People are having trouble adapting to different, like the communication styles or different, or any changes that may happen in the environment. So they came up with that adaptability being a behavior that they want to see more of within the organization, and this is where we have to have the conversations, right? This is where we have to have the expectations. This is what we expect of you. This is how this particular competency looks. And if we are not clear that this is how we want it to look, then it becomes difficult for people, because people then, with the lack of clarity, people go down the line and, and at the end of the year, well, we were not clear on how to do this or how to do that. And maybe they lack skills or whatever. So the performance management process is a very, very detailed process. But one of the challenges we have in our culture, I don't mean to go off on a tangent with this, but when it comes to like the Caribbean in general, we have a very collectivistic culture, right? We used to have a waving gallery in Piaco years ago where people had to go and wave to your neighbors will come and wave to you in the airport.
Yeah.
But, even when we're driving on the highway and people would tell us police time in the flashlights and everything, but we don't know them, what they wanting us for. But again, our collectivism is sometimes helpful, but it is sometimes harmful, because sometimes we depend on people being nice to us within the company. And that is collectivism in a nutshell. In individualistic countries, for example, like in the US and Europe and stuff like that, people just do their job. And sometimes there's a lack of connection within the workplace, because sometimes you even hear if you go to Canada and you hear about people talking about people there, it's like nobody cares about you here, just on your own and that type of thing. But it's not always a negative thing. It's sometimes positive. It's sometimes how it needs to be, right? I mean, we could go on and on talking about the history and how these civilizations sort of developed, but we don't have time for that today, because those collectivistic countries became like that for a reason, and a lot of it had to do with geography.
And you have the different options. Now, I like the idea of the options, and to me, what are the different options? You shouldn't only have one way. That's a very linear way of thinking. So you should have multiple options in how you're going to achieve it. How are we going to do it? And then
exactly.
Take the way forward. So
yeah,
2024, as you said, Tony, this is such an important thing. I know you agree.
Say that again, Shivani.
I said 2024 is on us, and I know you are doing this for yourself, the grow model.
Yeah, well, we always have, every company should do this with everybody. But as individuals, we should do it with ourselves as well, in combination with the SWOT and tools matrix. I like to combine the two, because it gives you a bigger picture in terms of how we need to be going forward.
Well, definitely I would use the GROW model. I've used the GROW model in many different ways in projects as well, as you know, in project management, because you have a goal. What is the goal? So for example, one of my latest project is an innovation and design thinking. So I have a goal, I know what I want to do. What is the reality? The reality is I needed funding for it, like what Ruth was talking about. I needed funding and I got the funding. So what are the different options for me to get that? What were the different options? How am I going to do it? And then you have the way forward. So it may, sometimes just using this could change your mind also. So using the GROW model, this was another individual that came to me and he was, had lots and lots of leadership subject matter experience and wanted to go now into different areas, but he didn't know the path. He didn't really know where he wanted to go. But me looking at his CV, I could tell you he should go into leadership and he would be very good in leadership. But I can't tell him that if I'm using the GROW model, correct? I can't say, hey, you should get this position. No, I have to put the conversation and he needs to come about with it, the way forward. And
Yeah,
actually he did come about with the way forward, Tony. He took up a job in Barbados and I didn't tell him to take up the job, but he found it was 2 jobs and he did the goal, he saw the reality, he looked at all the different options.
Right. One of the things that comes up with this sometimes is because coaching is this model is really about questioning people to come up with the answers themselves. Sometimes you get the response like, well, if I had all the answers, I wouldn't come to you.
Yes.
But the idea is I want you to be part of the process, because when people become a part of the process, then they are more motivated to go after it rather than me telling you what to do all the time. Because once you get, again, I said this before and I'll say it again, once you are the type of leader who wants to solve everybody's problems, don't plan any vacation because you won't be going on it. Right? You just have to make sure that you are questioning people for them to come up with answers, so that you know that when you leave the office for any reason and you go away for a week or 2 weeks, that there are people there who can handle it. There are people there who have the initiative to take over what you have been doing. Exactly. That's what coaching does. It develops the people around you, and that is important to have in any company.
And something else too, in organizations, a lot of people want to do all this great coaching stuff, but leadership to me is so much more, it's important. You have to set the environment, because otherwise this will never work. You have to set the environment. You have to set the environment. Otherwise, all these wonderful conversations will not happen.
Yeah,
and people don't know what they don't know,
Exactly. All right, well, let me find out if Ruth, Brian, or Crystal has any questions in the meantime before we wrap up.
Feel free to type it in a chat. Even if you don't have any questions, you could always send us the question. You can send it via the email, and definitely Tony can answer it too. And then definitely how to contact him, which is under the V formation. But you will definitely get this recording once you have registered. You definitely get the recording, look at it, and when looking at something, you may get some more questions, right, Tony? People will get questions.
Yeah, I think I didn't have my full name there, so in case people wanted to contact me.
Tony Raghunanan. I saw it, yeah, Tony Raghunanan, yeah.
Okay, so thanks a lot. Thanks, Ruth, Brian, Crystal. Appreciate you being here. And thanks, Shivani, for inviting me to have this webinar.
So, Tony, thank you so much. And thank you to the viewing audience. And I know even though persons didn't join us live, obviously everybody always listens to this type of conversations after and send us lots of questions. So whether you're listening to it live or you're listening to it on recordings, please ask your questions, send us an email, and we are here. The GROW model is one of the coaching models that we use a lot, whether you use it in project management, you use it in organizations, you want to set it up as to start up a business. But at the end of the day, we are going into 2024 and we want to set correct goals. So as Tony, you have enlightened us even more with the GROW model. What is the goal? What is happening? What is your reality? And what are the options? And what is the way forward? Of course, contact us. This is what we do. Tony will be able to put a coaching plan for you. And, that may evolve into some certain types of training as well. So thank you, Tony. Thank you. Any closing remarks before we close?
Well, I know that I had attached to the TOWS matrix, the TOWS matrix. Make sure if you want to see examples of that, you Google it. I know I showed the Starbucks version, but if you Google TOWS matrix, you will see how it uses the SWOT analysis to come up with actions. And it's a very, very powerful tool. I encourage you to use it if you can. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. And on behalf of Caribbean Connect, as we bring forward learning and development, sharing knowledge. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, audience. And we wish everybody all the best for 2024. Merry Christmas, happy holidays for those of us, celebrating it. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and all the best for 2024. Please look out for some other podcasts, webinars before 2024. And definitely you'll see us again in the new year. Thank you, Tony. All the best.
All right. Take care. All right.
Bye-bye.
Ruth, Brian, Crystal, take care. Have a good season.
Bye-bye. All the best.
Okay.